How does the DreamWorks Fisher Boys sit on a crescent moon? The rest of the moon is still there, right? I want to know what happened to the moon. And is the Earth dead yet? And I don't care if you have bait that gives fish orgasms. Fishing on the moon usually yields negative results.
You know what? The sin I had in the Kung Fu Panda 2 video works so perfectly here, so I'm gonna replay the audio from that video. People get upset when YouTubers like me take CinemaSins too seriously, but here is CinemaSins taking something too seriously.
Damn, Spielberg out-Disney's Disney by 5 seconds for a massive 32-second logo.
Darn it! Why did I think you were going to criticize the length?
This is Burke.
Cliche narration is cliche.
Ah yes, let's just not include exposition and just expect audiences to figure everything out on their own. We are being introduced to a world with Vikings and dragons. It makes sense to give us an explanation of the status quo, so then when the plot begins, it makes more sense.
The only problems are the pests.
How does a village have the money to support life with constant dragon attacks? These dragons are not only stealing their revenue, but also causing constant damage. And who has kids in an environment like this? Who are the real monsters here?
The dragons don't attack every night, and it's later stated that they've been attacking this village for hundreds of years, so the Vikings have most likely found a way to adapt. And why would they stop having kids? They would protect them at all costs, and then train them to fight the dragons. Gotta use more manpower.
Oh, and that's Fish Legs, Snotlout, the twins, Rough Nut and Tough Nut.
Wait, am I supposed to know which one is which? It feels like the filmmakers knew I'd want to be able to know who's who throughout this film, but only half-assed the solution.
I feel like they did a good job having Hiccup's words match who we see on screen, but since they're just side characters for comedic relief, I don't think you need to remember their names.
Killing a dragon is everything around here.
But they give you names in order to ward off trolls and gnomes. Dragons, no big whoop, go kill one. Gnomes, we need to protect you from those bitches with a terrible first name of voodoo power.
Yeah, I feel like dragons wouldn't care about the name, unlike trolls and gnomes. I mean, these Vikings at this point believe that they're heartless monsters.
Wait, that worked? Fucking... Wasn't he just talking about how it needed calibrations? Wasn't he firing basically blind? Is this all due to luck or screenwriter ex machina?
Yes, it was a really lucky shot, let's be honest. But so what? Just because it was unlikely doesn't mean it's impossible. Like, you're literally sinning the movie for a lucky shot. I don't think that's sin-worthy.
Oh, and there's one more thing you need to know.
There's one more thing you need to know, narration cliche.
I think you misunderstand what the word cliche means.
Dad.
Somehow, in this uber badass culture where even the weakling kid works with a blacksmith and has the biggest badass father of them all, this kid still grew into a wimp.
I mean, there has to be a first for everything, right?
I have his mess to clean up.
You mean the mess Hiccup made was in any way disproportionate to all the other dragon damage that occurred in the last 30 minutes?
He's referring to this mess that wouldn't have happened if Hiccup stayed in the blacksmith shop where he should have been. Stoke is pissed right now, so he blames his son.
Excuse me, barmaid. I'm afraid you brought me the wrong offspring.
It's like someone at Pixar just got drunk, watched this movie, swapped a gender or two, and Brave was born.
Somehow, Jeremy is saying this movie is exactly like Brave. Is it just because both movies take place in Scotland and have a parent-child conflict? Because if that's how you compare movies, by that logic, Terminator and RoboCop are the same movie, because they both have an invincible and super strong cyborg from the future.
Also, during that entire dragon attack, did absolutely no one die?
It's possible some of them died, but we didn't see that because it's not important for the story. You just made an assumption.
Goes hunting for trolls.
Trolls exist. They steal your socks.
If all trolls do is steal socks, why are we so afraid of them that we name our children stupid like Hiccup just to avoid them?
That's the joke.
Hiccup is not that boy.
Father disappointed his son isn't more like him cliche.
Yep, you definitely don't know what cliche means. Yes, this is a common storytelling device, but it still works and still elicits an emotional response, so it is by definition not overused to the point of losing its original meaning.
I managed to lose an entire dragon.
Well, that dialogue is awfully coincidental to your forest findings.
You missed the real sin in this scene, being that in this shot, Hiccup whacks himself with a branch, but then in the next shot, the branch is gone. If you actually did your job correctly, you would have noticed that.
Dragon adorability is a trait I cannot believe they evolved during the time they also evolved fire, claws, jaws, and all sorts of killer
I think this is a weird point, but I think what's even weirder is that you're saying this over this scene. Hiccup isn't looking at Toothless and thinking, hey, he's cute. He's seeing how innocent and helpless he looks while he's about to kill him.
All dragons have a limited number of shots. How many does a Gronkle have?
It doesn't matter the number because it misses on every shot.
I would agree with you for the first 3. But with the fourth and fifth, in both cases, Snotlout and Hiccup have their shield up to block, and at the final shot, Gobber throws it off, forcing it to miss Hiccup.
A dragon will always go for the kill.
Except during this training session.
Okay, I said in my Lego movie video that I came across the dumbest sin. I take that back. This is the dumbest one. The Gronkle shot all 6 of its shots in this one scene with the clear intention of killing all of them. Not to mention, the movie is saying that Gobber is wrong here, since we later find out the dragons aren't just soulless monsters, they're just animals who will mind their own business if you leave them alone. The only reason the Gronkle was firing in this scene is because it's trapped and is trying to get out. So much dumb in 5 words that I have to add more than one sin.
Movie takes its book solve everything cue from Buffy and Harry Potter.
I can't even. This book doesn't even know anything about a Night Fury, so it doesn't solve everything. This book is literally useless to the plot in the grand scheme of things. Like, what are you talking about?
Entire Viking existence seems to revolve around dragons, as opposed to, Vikings.
Because dragons have been attacking them for hundreds of years? I swear, whenever you send great movies, you come up with the dumbest critiques.
Look for its blind spot. Every dragon has one.
What? Really? But why? That seems like a huge evolutionary flaw, actually.
Literally all living things have blind spots.
Our parents' war is about to become ours. Figure out which side you're on.
Okay, Astrid seems like kind of a dick. He's clearly on the human side. Just because he's terrible at dragon fighting doesn't mean he wants to see all humans killed. Jesus.
Well, the whole time, Hiccup has been trying to ask Gobber about Night Furies, and as a result of that, they messed up this training session. Astrid is saying that he should take this more seriously, basically.
Luckily, dragons understand human gestures that mean I come in peace.
Toothless saw Hiccup holding the same knife over him while he was tied up, and clearly understands that it's a murder weapon, so Hiccup throwing it in the pond should be really easy to understand.
Dragon that understands that kicking a knife in the water means peace is definitely confused about the I want to pet you gesture for some reason.
What kind of wild animal immediately understands the concept of petting?
So, I can see why people are afraid of smaller things like snakes and spiders, but why would a dragon have any reason to be afraid of eels? Ever?
According to Google, eels give dragons eel pox. It makes them sick.
Don't you mind me? I'll just get back here.
Hiccup thinks he can just attach his invention to Toothless's tail without him knowing or caring. And even though nothing happens, this is some presumptive right here.
You admit nothing happens and still sin it anyway.
Hiccup saw Toothless rolling around in grass a second ago, and makes the huge assumption that holding out a handful of it will make the dragons docile.
And considering it works, I'm failing to see what your point is.
And again, how does no one notice this?
He's carrying grass in this scene. Do you seriously think someone would have been able to see that? They would just see the Gronkle sniffing and laying down and be confused how Hiccup did this.
Also, Hiccup keeps learning things with this one species of dragon that somehow work for all species of dragons.
They're still dragons though, so I think this is believable.
Hiccup brings a deadly and feared dragon that he loves into his town that wants to kill dragons. And they make noise right when Astrid is walking nearby, because the script said so, of course.
And you left out the reason for why Hiccup did this. His harness is stuck in the saddle, so he needs tools from the blacksmith shop to cut it loose.
He can barely walk through the village without being swarmed by his new fans.
That's another thing. Hiccup's popularity is such that I don't understand how a big fan of his hasn't secretly followed him to his hideout to see the dragon training.
I think he would most likely make sure that doesn't happen.
Hiccup luck sacks his way back onto the dragon after many seconds of free falling.
Sending luck again.
And while Hiccup rides this dragon, I can't help but think, discount Atreyu and Falcor.
Why don't you remove even one sin for this awesome sequence?
I can't wait. I am so leaving.
Wait, he won the honor of killing the dragon, but they didn't make him do it right there in the ring? Is it so he has time to figure out a solution?
No, it's meant to happen tomorrow. Are you paying attention?
If anyone can fly around in a movie, you can bet the movie will dedicate 5% of its runtime to flying around.
Well, yeah, it's a movie about a kid training a dragon. Are you saying we shouldn't see flying scenes? You're sitting the movie for having multiple flying scenes?
Tyrannosaurus Smaug. No, discount T-Rexilla. It's one of those two.
Arbitrary movie references.
What are you looking at?
Man, someone could score a viral hit with a supercut of all the animated movie characters who have said this to their animal sidekick in a lame attempt at comedy.
Ironic.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but this dragon competition arena is even more deadly and unsafe than the one in Goblet of Fire.
You're saying that as if in Goblet of Fire, that dragon didn't escape and chase Harry. At least this one keeps them contained.
They killed hundreds of us!
Never on screen, though.
Again, we don't need to see it. We can imagine dragons killing them just fine. I'm sorry, I just realized I literally wrote Imagine Dragons. I didn't even intend that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm keeping this in. Holy crap. I did not mean that.
Don't know what you're up against. It's like nothing you've ever seen.
Hiccup says vague bull like this, instead of there are 50,000 dragons there and one the size of a fucking mountain.
Even if he did say that, Stoic wouldn't listen. I mean, this guy hasn't been listening to Hiccup all movie.
You're not my son.
This asshole finally says what everyone has always known he thought, and it's presented as some whammy moment.
It still hurts to hear those words come directly from his mouth.
Some, not me, are wondering if there is in fact a plan at all, and what it might be.
Find the nest and take it.
At first, we sinned the fact that this unquestioned leader had to go to council. Now that we know there's a council, since when can Stoic just do whatever the hell he wants? Earlier when they went out to find the nest, he had to appeal to a council of some sort. Now he can just lead a bunch of men into boats without any knowledge of what they're getting into.
Well, they didn't have Toothless with them to help them find the nest before. I can imagine a council meeting happen, and they now feel more confident to find it.
Sure, Toothless is giving directions now, but they had to get to this point for it to happen. How did they know which direction to sail in the first place?
They've been around this general area multiple times because they found the dragons kept coming from this place.
I'm impressed this totally male-dominated society has a woman warrior. Too bad they couldn't give her a line.
You said that as if both Astrid and Ruffnut don't count.
I do not believe you can punch holes in mountains by lobbing small rocks at it. I just don't think that makes any logical or scientific sense at all. Even if the mountain is hollow and has walls this thin, you're still on thin ice with me, movie.
Admits why this makes sense, still doesn't believe it.
Damn, this Indominus Godzilla waited so long to breathe fire on Stoic he allowed time for an Ex Machina.
Yeah, no, the teenagers showing up isn't a Deus Ex Machina, since the movie literally showed them getting ready to come here.
Oh, Jesus, the shackles and fire weren't enough phony rescue tension. Now we have to sit through a he definitely won't drown either scene.
You're sinning the movie for creating dramatic tension? What?
Why hasn't Toothless chewed or laser breathed his shackles off yet?
Probably because they're not in his range?
I'm sorry. For everything.
Dad thinks this is the right time for this.
I'm proud to call you my son.
Oh my god, do this later!
He doesn't know if Hiccup will survive this fight or not, so now's actually the best time.
I'm on it first!
These characters have been so undeveloped, I had no idea there was some sort of competitive rivalry between them until this scene, nearly at the end of the movie. Luckily, it services the plot.
What? These two have been bickering the entire movie.
Well, they're both going to survive this, and the movie isn't going to give two shits about explaining it, so sin for sure.
Toothless survived this because his skin is fireproof. All dragon skin is. And he was able to hide Hiccup under his wings just in time, excluding one of his legs.
You see, because Toothless basically lost a body part that helped him move around, it only makes sense that Hiccup lost something of his own because symmetry and stuff.
Yeah, I get it. What's the problem?
Happy ending, but don't dragons live for hundreds of thousands of years? This is actually a tragedy if you think about Toothless lonely and on his own for decades after Hiccup dies. Kind of like that Futurama episode about Fry and his dog.
Well, this didn't age well, since this trilogy ends with Toothless living happily ever after with his new family. Ha! Retroactive sinning!
One whole fucking minute of logos, two of which were for the same company.
But they literally repeated showing the DreamWorks logo just because 2014 was their 20th anniversary. Shoot! Now we're in 2024, and that means DreamWorks is 30 years old now. Wow, I'm getting old.
This
is Burke?
The How to Train Your Dragon franchise is based on British children's books, and Burke is a semi-dirty word to British children. Burke means nothing to American kids. For the US version, they should have changed the village name to Fart.
Even if it doesn't mean anything to the US, Burke sounds cool on its own, and you could see this as an in-joke that only some people would understand, which is fine. And I feel like these movies would have sucked if they opened with Hiccup saying, "This is farts."
This is Burke.
Also narration, and the same narration that started and ended the first movie.
2 sins for the same thing. Padding the sin count.
Dragon racing!
These Burke assholes are the most progressive f***s in human history, going from hating dragons for bullshit reasons to having dragon races in just 5 years after learning they weren't so bad after all.
It's almost like this is a fictional world, and so it's not as realistic as the real world.
Also, discount Quidditch.
Why do you keep thinking of Harry Potter when you talk about How to Train Your Dragon?
That's 9 for the twins!
Of course the twins are winning, they're 2 people, and they have the dragon with the 2 heads, giving them an unfair advantage.
No, that's not it. If you actually watched the movie, you would have seen Snotlout and Fishlegs are simping for Roughnut, and so when they grab their own sheep, they just give theirs to Roughnut. Notice how both Snotlout and Fishlegs' nests are empty?
Now, dragons used to be a bit of a problem here, but that was 5 years ago.
Everyone was terrified of dragons, and they constantly burned down the village. Yes, that was a bit of a problem. But they domesticated dragons in only 5 years? Come on.
Another case of repeating a previous sin. Did I say padding the sin count yet?
We have custom stables, all-you-can-eat feeding stations, a full-service dragon wash.
Burke could not possibly have the infrastructure to support this nonsense, but I'm guessing they sold high on all those dragon tiers.
I mean, these are the same Vikings that were forced to constantly rebuild houses when dragons attacked, so I'd say this is another Tuesday for them.
Even top-of-the-line fire prevention, if I do say so myself.
As long as a dragon starts a fire right under this exact spot, otherwise they're screwed.
Sure, they won't always be able to anticipate every spot, but they can at least water the spots that dragons seem to fire the most.
Also, this isn't preventing any fires, it's just putting them out. If they found a way to fireproof their buildings with some sort of magical paint, then I'd be impressed.
I think Hiccup is simply saying that this will prevent the fire from spreading.
This town exchanged their dragon cruelty for sheep cruelty. Too bad they don't have a toothless to show them the error of their ways.
Do you know how dumb sheep are?
Adult sheep can weigh well over 100 pounds, yet these kids are able to throw it around, hold it with one arm, and do backflips and without breaking a sweat.
Excuse me?
Starfly!
This guy is not only wielding a weapon that would be nearly impossible to carry, but he hits his friend in the face with it, and he isn't dead the next time we see him. He is completely fine.
And here's the questioning cartoon logic part of the video. Honestly, dragons existing in this world at all is more ridiculous than kids carrying a sheep and Fishlegs surviving this.
What in the name of Wile E. Coyote is this bullshit?
A flight suit that helps him glide just in case he falls off of Toothless, which makes sense for him to build considering he built the tail fin for him in the last movie. What's the problem?
It seems a little reckless for Toothless to be spitting fireballs at Hiccup, especially after he seemed reluctant to do this in the first place.
Do you not remember when Hiccup said in the first movie that Night Furies never miss? I think he'll be fine.
They both survived this. Luckily for them, there was a much softer rock pillar directly behind the one he almost slammed into.
How would this have killed Toothless? And he was holding Hiccup under his wings, so that's how he's alive.
Astrid manages to find Hiccup in this uncharted area Hiccup and Toothless crashed into.
It couldn't have anything to do with the fact that this exact scenario has presumably happened multiple times in the giant rock formation that Toothless destroyed, could it?
76 seconds of flirting youths.
2 seconds of pointing things out on the screen.
I know that I'm not my father, and I never met my mother, so what does that make me?
Hiccup tossing in this bit about never knowing his mother has less to do with him knowing who he is, and more to do with letting the viewers who didn't see the first movie know because it's important to the story later.
Okay, cool. But would he have preferred Valka to never be mentioned then? And this exposition was some of the less clunkiest I've seen.
The Emerald City! Or did the Wizard of Oz merge with the Fortress of Solitude?
What happened here?
I know what happened. Elsa got banished again. Viking lightsaber.
Literally 3 sins of Jeremy just making a bunch of arbitrary movie references.
How do you suppose we explain this mess to Drago Bloodfist?
Drago what fist?
Pretty rich of a dude named Hiccup from Burke to make fun of anyone's name. Also, both Drago's parents and ancestors are assholes.
Also pretty rich coming from you, who was making fun of Hiccup's name in the first movie and just made fun of Drago's name right now.
We'll follow those trappers to Drago and talk some sense into him.
Why is it that the heroes of these movies always think that the guy described as a madman sounds like someone you can talk sense into?
That is something the movie itself says. Hiccup changed stoic in the last movie and so thought he could do the same with Drago, only to learn that some people are just bad. You could even argue Hiccup's arrogance gets Stoic killed. You are using the movie's own critique against an in-universe character.
Hiccup's mother is wearing her Grand Wizard of Dragons mask because when she goes flying around, she needs to look potentially evil.
I feel like that was the point. There are dragon hunters that want to capture the same dragons she protects, so this is used to intimidate them.
Toothless doesn't drown twice in this series.
Why should he have this time? He was able to swim up to the surface and grab onto a block of ice to help him float. I wonder why he didn't show that scene.
Gasp! She recognizes Hiccup's small, basically unnoticeable scar that no one has ever mentioned before.
Well, the scar was actually there in the first movie, so this isn't a cheat.
Also, Mom knows who her kid is after last seeing him as a baby and because of a scar that she forgot about long ago because she was whisked away 5 seconds after he got it.
It probably wasn't just a scar. After noticing how familiar it is, being at his chin, the same place it was where a cloud jumper scratched, she most likely looked closer at his face and saw how familiar it looks to that baby she had 20 years ago. And she even says, a mother never forgets.
But a mother never forgets.
So I guess we figured out what happened to Merida after the end of Brave. No need for Brave 2, Pixar. We're warning you.
And instead of realizing this line helps explain the previous sin, Jeremy decided to compare this series to Brave for the second time in a row. This series doesn't even take place in Scotland.
Stoic and Dauber conveniently happen along the hole in the ice where Toothless fell, where Hiccup's helmet is conveniently floating.
Dauber? His name is Gobber. You show some respect to the best character in the trilogy.
Find them, Skullcrusher.
Dragons can apparently pick up scents like bloodhounds, even though this mask has been sitting in ice-cold water all this time. Why not? You try looking up a Wikipedia page on dragons and finding that ability.
No problem. While this isn't Wikipedia, here's a wiki article that confirms that Rumblehorns, which is the kind of dragon Skullcrusher is, can track really well. But even if I couldn't find this article, why is this a sin? Dragons don't exist in real life, so the writers can assign whatever abilities they want to them. You don't have the right to say, this is wrong.
Muppet ripoff dragon.
How does this remind you of the Muppets? Like, at all?
Everyone back home had dragons of their own.
If only it were possible.
No, really.
Believe me, I tried as well.
Valka doesn't believe Hiccup, even though he still lives in Berk, and she hasn't been there in 20 years.
I don't blame her though, since she tried to convince Vikings to stop killing dragons and they didn't listen.
People are not capable of change, Hiccup.
Said the stay-at-home mom of a small child and wife of the village king before she decided to make a go of this whole dragon sanctuary thing.
Yeah, you completely missed her point. Valka is saying people aren't willing to change their minds and approaches to certain things. She wanted peace with dragons since Hiccup was a baby, and that hasn't changed over the last 20 years.
Every dragon has its secrets.
And Valka just happens to know what they all are, and how to reveal them.
She probably did something similar to other dragons, and I doubt she expected those scales specifically to pop out.
They know we're missing, and they have tracking dragons.
Astrid tells Drago that everyone from Berk is a dragon rider, along with specific information about the main characters, giving him an opportunity to attack them before they can attack Drago, making Astrid some sort of Bond villain/hero.
This is Astrid underestimating Drago. She doesn't know he has an alpha to control dragons, and so is trying to scare him by telling him about dragon riders that can supposedly stop him.
I think we did well with this one, Val.
I think you did well, Stoic.
Can you show what they're even talking about here? Because for viewers who probably haven't seen this movie in a while, this scene is completely out of context. Anyway, both Hiccup and Stoic are talking about how Berk has changed with all the dragon domestication. So, what's your point? I think Hiccup did well too, if you ask me, and all of Berk in general.
Will you be my wife once again?
Marriage extortion.
But they're already married.
Movie expects me to believe these kids were able to get past all the guards and soldiers, hide in the traps with their dragons, and blow their way out of the traps that were designed to contain f***ing dragons, and ultimately almost defeat this giant army? I guess so.
The only reason the dragons couldn't break out was because they were tied down, and the teenagers simply cut the ropes.
I guess eventually she's gonna marry both of these guys? There's some adult themes, I'll tell you what.
No, at the end of the movie, both of them just ignore her. Especially since this love triangle isn't brought up in the next movie.
The Alpha. Now we have a fight.
Drago is standing alone, talking to himself for most of this battle.
Then it's a good thing I brought a challenger.
You can totally kill Drago right now, by the way.
Jeremy says Drago is talking to himself most of this battle while showing Drago summoning his Bewilderbeast.
This movie suddenly got Godzilla, Pacific Rim, and Clash of the Titans on our asses.
Even more arbitrary movie references. Yay.
It takes more than a little fire to kill me!
This is true of most Berg citizens. The dragon attacks in the first movie yielded no fatalities, and I'm pretty sure no one in this movie will be killed by fire either.
Says this, even though Stoic is literally killed by fire in this movie.
Don't make a children's movie about dragons goring each other to death if you don't have the guts to show blood.
Stabbing is already pushing it, and I think blood would raise this movie's rating.
I guess there are other main characters fighting in this huge battle, but I guess they're not important, or they're flying around waiting for the movie to pay attention to them. Who knows? This feels like a bloody, confusing battle where nobody's dying.
You know, Stoic literally dies in this battle, right?
All of this loss. And for what?
Hiccup still thinks he can talk to this guy.
Even more repeating yourself, which, ironically, I feel like I'm doing.
To become unstoppable? To rule the world?
I mean, yeah.
Yelling at the screen.
Moments earlier, we saw Toothless's purple fireball completely obliterate several giant weapons. Yet when Stoic takes a Toothless fireball to the chest, he still remains entirely intact.
And doesn't this refute the 2 times you claim nobody dies in these movies? Like, seriously, this makes you look even stupider that you show this.
Get away from him!
Even though it's totally obvious Toothless was mind-controlled, Hiccup decides to blame him for dumb and infuriating reasons.
Hiccup just saw his dad die. He's emotionally distracted and so is taking his anger out on Toothless, since technically speaking, Toothless killed Stoic. Trust me, I'd do the same if I were in his position.
He took all the dragons?
Not all of them.
Since they couldn't defeat Drago with hundreds of adult dragons, they're going to try and defeat Drago with a few baby dragons. And based on how much time is left in the movie and the kind of movie this is, they're probably going to succeed.
That is not what happens. They just use the baby dragons to fly to Berk, and Hiccup then knocks the Alpha's control out of Toothless, and then Toothless challenges the Alpha by taking control of all the dragons. The babies do not help at all in this climax.
But won't that Bewilderbeast just take control of these guys too?
They're babies! They don't listen to anyone!
Oh sure, let's just ride our hopes on that. Besides, this is mind control, not real communication, right?
My best guess is that because the baby dragons don't have a fully developed brain, the Alpha isn't able to control them.
You'd never hurt me.
The real you is inside there somewhere, cliche.
Well, he doesn't say those words specifically, but anyway, this isn't a cliche since it's still emotional.
How are you doing that?
Movie magic. Also, Drago is letting him do this instead of flying away, or making the Alpha male make Toothless hit him with a fireball. There are several other better options, but Drago seems to be a huge fan of remaining stationary.
CinemaSins left a particular scene out that would explain this. To summarize, Drago is underestimating Hiccup and doesn't believe this would work.
He's not yours anymore. He belongs to the Alpha. But please, oh great Dragon Master, try to take him. He will not miss a second time.
Is he incapable of being re-mind controlled now?
The Alpha follows Drago, and Toothless just dropped him on the ground. No way the Alpha would immediately try this again.
Wait, is this movie saying as long as the dragons can't see, the wildebeest can't control his brain?
Another one of those cases where I had to think about it, and I hope this is an acceptable answer from context clues. All the dragons that the Alpha controls are able to do that almost instantly, implying it doesn't require eyesight. But for Toothless, since he becomes the new Alpha, this says to me that he is harder to control. This is shown when the Alpha took a little while to control him to kill Hiccup. He had to specifically look into his eyes, so blocking it out should help here.
This is Berk.
God damn it.
And another sin for the movie repeating itself while you also repeated yourself. I'll say it one more time, padding the sin count.
52 seconds for 2 logos. That is f***ing inflation. What if we made a movie called How to Trim Your Logos?
Okay, I think it might have been S-Dog who suggested this in my Q&A, but unless I have something new to say from now on, I'm just gonna add a sin silently every time you send these goddamn logos. It's actually exhausting trying to figure out new things to say about the same sin.
I mean, when you called it the hidden world, I thought that maybe it was a metaphor. I haven't seen this much fog and fire obscuring the action since I went to that Rammstein show we no longer talk about.
Huh? The scene you're showing doesn't have action, it's just a guy walking. And if you're talking about later when there is action, we can see it just fine. And besides, this fog is here to show Hiccup and his crew's failed stealth mission to free all the dragons on this boat.
That's really just a nitwit who forgot to fireproof his butt.
Man, Kirk Cameron is going to be so pissed when he finds out how I fireproofed my butt.
I don't understand what the joke is, but based on all the other lame jokes this guy makes, I'm gonna assume it's not funny.
But at least nobody else knows we're here.
Character is woefully unaware that the definitive statement they are making is contradicted by hilarious evidence that the audience can see cliché.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Look at this weirdo. Bet it's super dumb.
Yes, it is. It could easily fit through these cage bars and save itself.
I think that was the joke, dude. Weirdly, I've been getting more comments on my Inside Out video telling me that I take you guys too seriously. And I think it's funny how you do the exact thing I get criticized for.
Why can't I get this cage open? It slides. Obviously.
It does not slide. It opens on a hinge just the way you thought it would. The problem is it was locked, and the lock slides. This may seem like a minor difference, but hi, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to my CinemaSins.
You don't think the lock is exactly what Astrid was referring to?
Also, I can get behind a story arc where a cluster of a raid party needs maturation, but I can't get behind bringing along a person who isn't able to comprehend the basic function of a cage door.
You're talking about Ruffna, one of the 3 characters in this series that has always been portrayed as dumb. This is just consistent characterization. Though, then again, you somehow missed that Roughnet and Toughnet argue a lot in the first film, so I guess it makes sense that you missed this.
What took these guys so long? We saw them 30 seconds ago, charging on the deck of the boat, and they only now came in for the attack?
Maybe they were getting into position to spring a sneak attack?
Oh, stop worrying. They'll get it.
And I'm so sure that I'm totally willing to put their actual lives on the line, so I can sit here and just offer commentary.
A whole year has passed since the last movie. You think this is their first mission? Of course Valka has confidence in them.
The one thing about the jumping to your death but your ship dragon is there waiting for you bit that I can't quite wrap my head around is when do they plan these maneuvers? Did Fishlegs really send his dragon off the edge of the ship a while ago knowing this was how he would escape? What if the dragon had been 5 feet to the right?
The dragons are always nearby to help with their owners. That's one of the main themes of the movie, that the humans rely a little too much on them.
This is Burke.
Okay, fine. It's not technically narration, but since he's referencing the narration from the first movie and saying it to a dragon, who as a species apparently are born understanding English, we're just gonna call it meta-narration and add the sin anyway, okay?
So even when the movie isn't technically narrating, you still sin it? That's cheating.
And the locals are as colorful as you get.
Me, look at this sensory overload. It's like the primary color paint can aisle blew its load on a birdhouse convention during a bug swarm.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Let's be real. These people have to play Frogger on the backs of dragons to avoid walking waist deep in dragon.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Wait, that's something wrong with this movie?
Also, maintaining a dragon population of this size must wallop Burke's economy to a degree that can only be ignored by the movies. The upkeep, the food supply, the space, and everything else must be a nightmare. Plus, at least 4 or 5 of these dragons have got to be jerks, right?
We've already been over this, but these movies have firmly established that the Vikings being able to build all of this with the resources they have is a main part of them. And especially now with Hiccup as the new chief and his specialty as a blacksmith, they could get this done in no time.
So, Hiccup's mom, any notes on my bone-crushing assault, or was it pretty much perfect?
The snot-lout hitting on Hiccup's mom storyline promises to be every bit as awkward and uncomfortable as the writers wanted it to be, while maintaining none of the humor they were hoping would be there as well. Also, I just remembered this character's name is Snotlout, and that's absolutely a sin on whoever named him. Did they name their other sons Spitclod and Lummox?
Dude, the main character in this series is named Hiccup. You even demonstrated you know what Burke really means in the last movie. Why are you just now realizing this?
Food fight!
With hundreds of dragons circling the Burkelands, meat would not be easy to come by. This chunk of meat would absolutely be a delicacy, and no one would dare chuck it across a table in a food fight.
Except we've only ever seen dragons eat fish, so I think they're fine.
Eret, son of Eret!
I can't remember my own mother's name, and Hiccup can recognize Eret from a throat clearing? Bull. Or they're f***ing.
Hold on, you can't remember your own mother's name? Okay, maybe that's a joke, but the throat clearing thing is pretty realistic. I'm able to assign voices I recognize to anyone I know, and Eric has been living with them for a year now. I find this believable.
One day, you're gonna pick a fight you can't win.
This super supportive statement has no payoff. Hiccup, his crew, and the dragons survive every fight they start.
You're right, they all survive. But that's not what Gobber is talking about. Later, Grimmel arrives and burns down Hiccup's house, and then when Hiccup and the gang try to capture him, they fall into his trap. That's the payoff that this is setting up. Gobber's point is that they can't win all the fights, not that they might die in battle.
Then the director said, let the character stand in the shadows with only his eyes lit so we know for sure he's evil. You know, since we ran out of apples.
Pointing things out on the screen.
A year since Drago's defeat.
Little did anyone know, How to Train Your Dragon 3 is a sequel to Rocky 4 and a prequel to Creed 2. The animators worked very hard to depict 1986 accurately. Can't wait until they show us how Drago thunder punched Chernobyl after a nuclear accident and saved the lives of millions.
Are we really doing this? I get it, Drago has the same name as the guy who killed Apollo, but I'm sorry, that's not funny.
The flock is protected by a Night Fury.
I know we're in Viking times here, but how the does Grimmel not know about the Night Fury?
Because he was out doing other things? The only reason he's here is because these dragon hunters asked him to come over and kill Toothless, so why would Grimmel have heard of him before this moment?
This dragon is within mere feet of Grimmel as he approaches, but suddenly way far back when the shot changes to the side view, and he is supremely confident that his knockout arrow will put this huge animal to sleep before it crashes into him.
Okay, so you brought up a legit sin, being that the shots are inconsistent with how far away the dragon is from Grimmel, but then you criticized him for being confident that his dart would work. It's almost like that's the point, to show how dangerous and smart he is.
It was the home of your grandparents, and their grandparents before them.
Your grandparents' parents lived in Iowa, but we don't talk about them.
Joke would have been a whole lot funnier if they didn't mention they've lived in this village for 7 generations.
Out there, beyond the sunset, lies the home of the dragons.
This flashback is sweet and all, but wouldn't Hiccup have remembered this conversation with his father during the first 2 movies? Wouldn't that have been major motivation for plot lines and decisions before the franchise wanted to wrap this up in a pretty low bow?
But this idea of looking for the hidden world wasn't important until now. There was no reason for Hiccup to think about this in the first movie, and the second one, there wasn't anywhere near this many dragons, and Gobber berated Hiccup for thinking about dragons over his own village in this movie, and so only now Hiccup is remembering this and considering the hidden world as an option.
5 full minutes of dragon flirting.
Pointing things out on the screen. Now I'm worried I'm gonna have to say this way more often in this one.
At this point, Grimmel can just take Toothless down if he wants. He can kidnap him and put him on an island and hunt him for sport, like The Most Dangerous Game, or that movie with Ice-T called Surviving the Game. But he doesn't do this for reasons unknown.
Grimmel loves the hunt, and he sent this Light Fury out because he knows that Night Fury is mate for life. And so with Toothless falling in love with her, it'll be more fun to capture him whenever he tries to look for her.
This dragon meet cute is so Wall-E that I'm half expecting Toothless to start showing her Hello Dolly, using a series of cave drawings any minute now.
Wall-E? How is this anything like Wall-E? I mean, you showed the Light Fury shooting her plasma ball, so maybe you're comparing that to when Eve shot her gun, but A, Eve shot at Wall-E while the Light Fury was shooting at Hiccup and Astrid, and B, Toothless literally has the same ability, while Wall-E was a bunch of steps below Eve. Then again, you did compare this series to Brave twice, forcing me to accidentally say that these movies take place in Scotland even though they don't, so what do I know?
Another Night Fury.
It's more like a bright.
A Light Fury.
Yeah, yours is better, probably.
Nope, they are exactly the same amount of okay. Personally, I would have just gone with Discount Eva.
Okay, are you going to continue comparing this to Wall-E? I'd rather you not.
I swear this movie might as well have been titled National Geographic's How to Mate Your Dragon.
So is this movie not allowed to have a dragon romance? You never criticize Hiccup and Astrid's romance. Wait, are you being racist?
Hiccup finds a sleeping dart. He manages to locate a trap. Then he says,
He can't be that smart. He left his trap unmanned.
And then animated Jon Snow says,
Nothing's accidental when it comes to old Grimmel.
But this is never explained. It's almost like the movie was using this as a reason to explain who Grimmel was, despite Grimmel's actions making no sense.
This is one of those things that you're meant to put together on your own. Though, since your movie analyses suck, I understand why you didn't get it. Anyway, I mentioned earlier that Grimmel wanted Toothless to mate with the Light Fury, and because of that, Toothless wanted to go out and see her, so Grimmel knew Toothless would be here to spring this trap.
I know this handiwork. Grimmel the Grizzly. Famous back where I'm from.
So famous that every person there studied his dart designs for maximum plot convenience?
Era also mentions that Grimmel was the best dragon hunter he's ever met, so he's most likely seen his darts whenever that happened.
He lives for the hunt.
Movie justifies Grimmel's procrastination in killing Toothless by saying he lives for the hunt, which will in no way make this movie any more thrilling. Toothless is essentially a domesticated puppy dog, so trying to make hunting him exciting is just this movie's way of giving the protagonist a chance to win.
Wait a minute. You earlier said that Grimmel didn't trap Toothless immediately for no explained reason, but here you show the reason for why. And why didn't you go back and edit that scene?
You have no idea who I am, do you?
No, but you're using a vaguely Transylvanian accent and appearing out of the darkness, so I'm gonna guess Dracula. Are you Dracula? Count Chocula then?
Okay, that's definitely racist.
I am the Night Fury killer. I've hunted every last one but yours.
Is everyone just gonna keep pretending that the Light Fury isn't just a female Night Fury? What the hell kind of semantic games are we playing here?
They never actually call the Light Fury a Night Fury, and it's probably like how we call female lions lionesses. Night Furies seem to be way more powerful anyway, so it's more rewarding to kill them.
Also, even though the surprise of the double power twist is clever, it does leave me wondering how you knew the exact night he would be making this visit, and why you wouldn't use that foreknowledge to a better advantage, maybe involving traps and dragons and such.
What other night could it have been? Why would Hiccup assume Grimmel would come at any other time? And you asking why they don't use the foreknowledge to a better advantage proves you missed the point of this scene. Hiccup underestimates Grimmel, and the consequences of that leads to Grimmel's dragons burning down his house.
This is Burke.
From here on out, Hiccup is now banned from saying "this is Burke" ever again. He's already said it 19 times in this movie alone, although I'm not good at counting, so it's probably more.
You know, you're guilty of this too. You say boner in every other video. Now you know how I feel whenever you repeat yourself.
You knew he was coming, but didn't have anyone scouting his dragons? That's like Dragon Warfare 101.
They didn't know they were coming. Though, I am wondering if Eric knew about Grimmel. Did he not know about these dragons? Nah, the drugging is probably a new thing.
I say Burke is wherever we go.
Huh, just like Asgard and Thor Ragnarok. Maybe this movie was being made before that movie came out, but it's fucking weird, especially with all the references to mythological Thor.
Yeah, these Vikings believe in Thor and Valhalla and all that jazz, so I feel like that fits this movie.
Gods! People who fly with babies are the worst!
Here's a completely inorganic airplane joke. The baby isn't doing anything annoying, the person flying with the baby isn't doing anything annoying. It's an airplane joke, for the sake of an airplane joke.
Says the baby isn't doing anything while showing the baby Gronkle shooting a fireball at Snotlout.
Then the director said, "What's that? We do have an apple left? Well, let's have him eat it," just in case people weren't sure by the light thing that our villain is truly an asshole.
And the a-hole thing is much better suited for when he puts the apple on the dragon's tooth.
I introduced him to your female. Fury's mate for life, you see.
Right, but she's also free to stay, so I'm still shaky on how this is supposed to benefit you.
But the Light Fury doesn't want to stay, and as I already explained, Toothless would want to chase after her, and that gives Grimmel the opportunity to trap him.
Therefore, they've gone. They can only have gone. Does anyone want to take a guess?
Grimmel tries to make people he knows are stupid guess the direction of Hiccup and the others for an infuriatingly long time.
I mean, he spelled it out for them by eliminating north, south, and east as options, and so they really should have guessed the correct answer.
Is there a problem here?
You mean that the movie has time for this completely uninteresting and unfunny side story? Yeah, I'd consider it a problem.
Pretty sure you already send this plot line, so double dipping.
Number 2, because I'm clearly Volka's favorite.
This clueless and grating shtick from the Jonah Hill character and the faux TJ Miller character is so similar to each other that I can't tell them apart. Their characters are intensely unlikable. They aren't particularly good in battle, and I'm having a hard time figuring out the justification for them to exist.
They exist for comic relief, mostly. I don't think they're that funny either, but I'm sure other people think they are.
5 full minutes of dragon flirting, the sequel.
3 whole seconds of pointing things out on the screen.
How does Hiccup know the Night Fury mating dance?
He doesn't. That's kind of the joke.
Double dragon desire drags on as dorky dragon deftly draws demure dragon, drawing out dragon dating denouement and delaying dragon debauchery.
Yeah, a few of those words don't start with D, so that alliteration is ruined.
Toothless can't fly without assistance, which is tantamount to being literally unable to get it up. And that means we have symbolic impotence in a kid's movie. And that isn't sinful in and of itself until your kid sees the scene and asks, "Where don't babies come from?"
Does anyone consider the How to Train Your Dragon movies as for kids? because I personally don't.
5 full minutes of dragon flirting, the goddamn trilogy.
Yes, I can see what's on the screen too. Thanks for being here for me.
One day you'll have to snip those apron strings and let Toothless stretch his wings.
I'm not sure it's exactly his wings that he's been stretching. I get that this is a family film and all, but I'm not the one that decided to make dragon f***ing a major plot point.
Jeremy implies boner.
Chin up, Hickey. Puff out that chest. Move that butt to the left a little bit.
There may be more filler in this movie than actual movie.
Kind of like this video, huh?
Gotcha!
Even in cartoons, when somebody grabs a person in midair with one hand without physics taking over and making them fall as well, it's a sin.
And so is you questioning cartoon logic.
We left her behind?
How could you not notice she was missing? You ride a two-headed dragon.
Astrid would be amazing at CinemaSins.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Both you and Astrid forgot that Tough Nut is stupid, and that's part of his whole character.
You gave him his freedom, Hiccup. What were you expecting?
He was expecting Toothless to obey his best bud. He did say,
Bring her home by sundown at the latest.
for Thor's sake.
That is what he was expecting, but it's kind of unrealistic when you think about it, since Toothless is an animal who'd be emotionally distracted and is now able to fly on his own. That's what Astrid's point was.
Toothless.
Shh, you'll spook them.
Or maybe he'll alert a dragon horde to your fleshy human presence.
What? Wasn't that exactly what Astrid was talking about?
So if this place is to remain hidden from man, why would the happy couple be the only 2 Night Furies left? I get that they were hunted down out in the world at large, but none of them stuck around here? And if they aren't the only 2, then why would Toothless automatically be king?
I don't doubt that there are some Night Furies down here, but why is he the king? Because he's the alpha? Remember the last movie when you overruled the previous alpha? That was literally how they beat Drago?
We should go.
Some completely disconnected asshole who's not part of the festivities sneaks up behind the 2 heroes and captures them, cliché.
Isn't this dragon a part of the festivities?
Dad, are you gonna get us a new mom?
Skip.
This is a really good scene that spells out the main message of the movie, being that while love means being there for those you care about, it also means letting them go when the time is right. This sets up this movie's ending perfectly, so no, it's not skippable.
If capturing Toothless is this easy, there is no reason he couldn't have done it at the very beginning of the movie. Whatever the nonsense plan was about releasing the Light Fury had absolutely nothing to do with his ability to achieve his primary motivation to kill this dragon, which apparently was just this easy.
Technically, Toothless came out into a trap because Grimmel shot a dart at the Light Fury, so them mating actually had an effect on his plan.
Also, if his motivation is to kill the Night Furies, why doesn't he just take care of that right now? Or maybe in the next 30 minutes of this movie's pointless climax.
The reason Grimmel doesn't kill him now is because the other dragons will come to save him, but he'll threaten to kill the Light Fury, forcing Toothless to call off the attack and allow Grimmel and his men to capture all the remaining dragons.
Call them off, Alpha! No reason for her to die, too!
Wasn't Toothless just shot with sleeping venom? I mean, I faked being asleep to avoid conversations with my wife, too, but this isn't the time for that.
Is that really how you treat your wife? Oh, yeah, and this also should have answered your question in the previous sin.
He listened to you.
Should he, though? Last night, Astrid opted to take Hiccup to find Toothless, rather than encourage his individual strength. And when they found Toothless, the very symbol of Hiccup's crippling self-doubt, she opts out of a "you're just as good as he is" pep talk and swings to an ego stabbing.
Now that's a king.
My point is, Astrid's an asshole.
Are you suggesting she should have brought this up when they were in the hidden world? I feel like that would have been awkward. And she thought them finding Toothless would make him feel better, and maybe Toothless could still help in their mission against Grimmel. Now is the best time to bring up the lesson Hiccups needed to hear while all the dragons are gone.
Toothless manages to roar loud enough instructions to this giant dragon while wearing a harness that keeps his mouth shut. That is amazing ventriloquism.
His mouth isn't entirely shut though. Like, you can literally see that.
This dragon manages to headbutt Hiccup so far he's able to reach Grimmel's glider, which is lucky ass, but even more lucky ass is how he finds the one spot on this thing that isn't burning.
Oh, cool. More sinning luck for some reason.
Let's just see who he follows!
If this miracle dragon mind control drug is this immediately effective, why wouldn't the first move just be to mind control the alpha?
Probably because he planned on killing him anyway.
How are we gonna get him off her back without hurting her?
Orgy problems.
For a guy who called this a kid's movie, you literally brought up orgy problems.
See that there? Oh,
cute.
You're cursed.
These hobgobblers have been a recurring mystery this entire movie. Is this their big payoff? Eating a ship Langolier style? Are we not going to have an explanation for why they duplicate? Why only some people can see them? And why they're considered a bad omen above any other destructive dragon? Come on, writers, you can do better than that. What if they only appeared to people who were about to die, and their final act is to spare them their worst fate? See? I just made your movie better, and I'm naked on a couch drinking yesterday's fermented sweet tea.
The movie not explaining how they can duplicate or why they're bad omen is literally the joke. Again, this is a comedy channel that somehow doesn't understand comedy.
Why does this lightning power throw these dragons off, but Hiccup is just fine? I'd say it might be his dragon scale armor, except I'm pretty sure that dragon scale armor is also found on, dragons.
Thanks to this person in the comment section for explaining this.
Hey man, even if you're both falling to your death, it's rude to touch people in their belt area.
It's almost like he's the villain or something.
Oh, look at this convenient island crag that will now allow the Light Fury to save Toothless and quickly, while also being able to turn around and save Hiccup before he crashes to the ground. You gotta love them island crags.
Still sending luck, but also ground? Hiccup almost fell into the ocean.
Go, Toothless. Go.
Damn it, this movie is all sorts of a mess, but this relationship is legit. Take your sin off while I go find a tissue, you bastard.
I love that you removed the sin for this scene, but I don't love that you claim this movie is a mess. Like, how?
Damn, this movie is taking a long time to end. I agree it's both sad and happy that Toothless is leaving and that he's gonna be the Hidden World's Lion King, but this ending is getting drawn out longer than The Lord of the Rings 3.
Exactly what I thought about this video.
Hey there, bud.
I brought my young children with me on this dangerous journey in hopes that you were still tame enough not to devour them.
Toothless is like a dog. He will always remember his favorite human.
Removing all the sins if Toothless burns down this boat and laughs.
Nah, you wouldn't have done that.
Don't screw this up.